Today is July 30th, 2014. We are interviewing Richard Paul at Adams County Courthouse. Mr. Paul is 97 years old, having been born October 23rd, 1916. My name is Katie Ambler, and I'll be today's interviewer. Mr. Paul, where and when were you born?
I was born in Hannibal, Missouri, in a south side of a double house on 4th and Rock Street. And I must have been in a hurry. The doctor that they called to deliver me was there 10 minutes.
What were your parents' occupations?
My father was a machinist with the CB&Q Railroad.
And your mother a homemaker?
My mother, she just kept the house.
Mm-hmm. Do you have siblings?
Have what?
Do you have siblings? Brothers and
I had
sisters?
one brother, and he died when he was 81.
Okay. What was his name?
James Robert Paul.
Did any of your other family members serve in the military?
In World War II?
Well, at any time.
I had an uncle that served in World War I. He was over in France.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing before you entered service? What did you do prior to your entry into military service?
I was working at Brown Drug, just a flunky on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Which branch of the military did you serve in?
The Army Air Force.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about the Army Air Force. Is that a branch that exists today?
No, later on they came out and they had a separate Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
But this is before they did that.
Right. And what was the highest rank that you achieved during active service?
First Lieutenant.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted. I didn't want to be drafted.
Why did you choose the Army Air Corps?
Had a hunkering for flying training.
Mm-hmm.
And figured I could get it there.
Okay.
Another friend and I went up to Peoria and took the examination. 150 questions, multiple choice. I had 135 of them right. He had 85, and you had to have 84 to pass. So we both got in.
What was that gentleman's name?
Lloyd Francis Green Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone long time ago.
What happened when you departed? So you enlisted. What happened next?
They said, they swore us in. It was kind of interesting. We had to go take a physical. They gave us a basket, put everything in that basket except your shoes. I lost all my inhibitions that day. And then they turned us loose and said, we'll let you know when we want you to report. And that was in November the 29th of 42. January 31st of 43, we both got letters in the mail to report the next morning before 11 o'clock to Decatur, Illinois. There's no public transportation over there. But my friend's father-in-law, no, my friend's stepfather drove us over there. He was Claude Kent. He worked out Soldiers Home. And he drove us over to Decatur. We got on a troop train. We didn't know where we were going. We wound up in Jefferson Barracks. We were down there for a month. So many people had colds down there that we started calling the place Pneumonia Gulch.
Where did you go from Jefferson Barracks?
I got on a troop train to ship out to a college training detachment. I didn't know where it was going. And when the train stopped and let us off, we were in Galesburg, Illinois by Knox College. I spent 2 months there at Knox College.
Okay.
And I got 10 hours of flying time out at the airport there.
What do you remember about your training or the early days of your service?
Well, let's see. You had to do everything by the books. It was strange. I had to learn how to march, and in the first 2 months the first month I was in Jefferson Barracks, we had marching every day, and we had some other things that we had to do. So you had to serve on KP. And if you were on the dishwashing, we called it flying the China Clipper.
Do you recall your, say, basic instructors or drill instructors? Do you remember any of them?
I don't remember drill instructors. I remember when I got to Corsicana, Texas, my flight instructor was a civilian, Thomas Saffold.
What was he like?
He was an older fellow, but he should really handle that airplane. He taught me how to do it.
Did you receive, beyond flight training, did you receive any other kind of specialized aviation training?
Before I got out of the Earth Service, I went through instrument flight school out in Lubbock, Texas.
And that's to fly a fully instrumented plane,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I was stationed in Memphis, Tennessee, but then in the Ferry Command. I finally thought of that. And I went down to Jackson, Mississippi. I'd taken a flight instruction on what they called a PQ-14. It was a Culver Cadet that was had radio control, and the Navy's used them for targets. They said when I got down there, take it off and see if you can land it. I did that. They said, well, you take it to Sacramento, California. That's a long ways from Jackson, Mississippi. The plane held 30 gallons of gas, burned 15 an hour. Every 2 hours you had to find a place to come down and get gas. So I came down every 2 hours and got gas. Flew over into Louisiana, and then to Dallas, Texas. Then I stopped again at Fort Worth to get some more gas. Went out in the West Texas a ways and got gas. Wound up in El Paso, wound up in Douglas, Arizona for the second night. The first night I spent in Dallas, Texas.
Can I back you up for just a second?
Right.
Okay. You said that you ended up in Galesburg. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have obviously flown all over the United States and all over the world. Give us a little bit of a timeline of where you went. Okay, so you started out at Jefferson Barracks, you went through to Galesburg. Where did you go from there?
San Antonio.
Okay, and from San Antonio, where?
I was there 3 months just waiting to get into pre-flight school. Pre-flight was across the road. And I spent 2 months in pre-flight school. Then I went to Corsicana, Texas. That was flying in a PT-19, 175 horse engine. And then when I got finished there and graduated from primary flight training, I went to Independence, Kansas. And that was larger airplanes, BT-13s, 14s, and 15s. And I was flying a BT-14, and the instructor didn't like the way I was landing it. I was using power landings. So they put me over into the BT-13, and I did much better with that. And 2 months of there, and that's where I got married. My girlfriend came out. I had to go to the CO and pop to and ask for permission to get married. And all the girls in the office giggled. And then I asked him another pass to go to town to buy a marriage license. She got there, and Christmas Eve of '43 we got married. Then she followed me every place I went. The next place I went after that was down Ellington Field, south of Antonio, Texas. And she came down there and she got her a job in a Sears Roebuck store in San Antonio. I only got to see her once a month. I had time off on Sunday. Took me 2 hours to get where she was and 2 hours to get back. We got 2 hours together.
Once a month.
Once a month.
How did you adapt to military life?
I just took it the way it was supposed to be taken.
Do you have any problems or any, Any issues with the food or the barracks or the physical regiment or the social life or the lack of?
No, I got along just fine with all of it.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about what your specific job or assignment was. You're obviously flying airplanes and a variety of airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
What did you typically do?
I spent flying time every day.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I went to grad school. We were learning the air rules.
What did you use the planes for?
What did I use the plane for?
Mm-hmm.
Just to practice. I learned to do loops and dives and chandelles and everything I could think of.
Okay. Where did you serve abroad?
What?
Where did you serve outside of the United States?
Australia, New Guinea, doing 4 Morotai Island in the Pacific and the Halmahera Island groups.
And how much time did you spend abroad?
Abroad?
Outside of the United States? How much?
I was overseas 6 months.
Okay. And what memories do you have from the time outside of the U.S.?
Well, I had a lousy co-pilot. He was a redhead from Flannelmouth from New Jersey. And I would give him an order to do something. He said, "Oh no, I'll do that later." I finally got him off my crew. Then when I was in New Guinea, I had to take him back to get into the 13th Air Force. Then the CO of the outfit we went into took a dislike to him, and I assigned a slip for him to have flying evaluation. They grounded him, made him tower officer on the island of Morotai. I got another co-pilot.
Who was the new co-pilot?
Oh, a Jewish fellow from New England.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Don't remember his name.
Did you ever serve on the front lines or see combat?
Well, bombing runs are front lines.
Absolutely.
I made 36 bombing runs.
Right.
One of the first ones was over the Japanese Navy in the Sulu Sea of Japan, not Japan, but the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And they hit my number 2 fuel cell with their flak, and I had a gasoline leak. I got the airplane back to the island of Morotai, landed it, parked it. The gas was still running out of that tank. We went to a place that we could spend the night, and that night the Japanese bombed my airplane. And I went down to the flight line the next day, and there's a fellow there that was going back to the island of Biak, flying a DC-3, C-47 designation. He said he was going empty to Biak. I said, "Well, will you take my crew on board and land at Newham 4 and let us out?" And he said, "Yes, I will." So we got back to the island.
Mm-hmm. You have certain military honors. What are those?
Well, the main, outside of the regular ribbons, I got a Distinguished Flying Cross for sinking 3 Japanese cargo ships.
Talk to us a little bit about the events that led up to that medal.
Well, I went out on a shipping strike. There were supposed to be 2 airplanes. I never saw the other one. We went out and flew across southern Borneo, and we're flying up the west coast of Borneo. We saw this ship camouflaged along there. We went out to sea and came in and strafed it. The bomb missed it, but the strafing set it on fire. It was hauling gasoline up for the Japanese fighters in the Philippines. So we pulled up, got over the hill that was ahead of us, and flew out over the town and came back out and looked at what was going on with that ship. It was a massive fire. It was burning all that gasoline. They went up to North Borneo and found a two other ships parked up there. One of them was a larger ship, and we dropped a bomb on it, and the bombardier said the hatch is open, and went right down the hatch. That blew the ship apart. The other ship was another smaller one, and the strafing said it. As a guy got up on the flight deck with a 30 caliber machine gun to shoot at us, and 450 caliber shot at him, he jumped overboard. Smart guy. We just sent back a message that we'd sunk those 3 ships and what time we'd be back at base. And about a few weeks later, the CO had me come out and line up with a bunch of other guys, and he awarded me a Distinguished Flying Cross. So I brought that home with me.
How did you feel when you were involved in these bombing runs? How did you feel about what you saw and where you were?
Well, most of it, we were just flying from high altitude. Usually about 8,000 feet. We got remote there, but then one day we had a low level one over Cebu Island in the Philippines with dropping shrapnel bombs against Japanese personnel. And one of the bombs blew up underneath the airplane and put 37 holes in the airplane. We got it back to the island, but it never flew again.
What kind of friendships, camaraderie, did you find or did you form while you served?
My crew was very friendly. Did you ever hear of Sabu, the elephant boy? He was a movie star. He was a ball turret gunner on my crew.
Oh.
He had come from India to England. Somebody brought him over there. Then he came over to the States and he starred in 2 movies. One of them was Elephant Boy. The other one was Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book.
Do you still correspond or speak with or talk to any of the people that you met during that time today?
I don't see any of them anymore. The guys that were all on my crew, I kept in touch with some of them for quite a while, but they finally died. Mm-hmm. I guess I got longevity.
You have good genes. How did you, what did you guys do for recreation when you weren't flying, when you were off duty? What did you guys do?
We had a raft out offshore and go swimming. And one day they called a small sea thing out there. I can't remember what it was. It was a small one. The one that has the tentacles, an octopus. Mm-hmm. I was very careful about swimming after that. But I caught a little one off course. Mm-hmm. They put it in a 1-gallon container, but there wasn't enough oxygen there for it, and it died in there.
Where were you when your time in service ended?
I was on the island of Boracay, and I was yellow from taking Atabrine to prevent malaria. So I laid around there for a couple of days in the sun to get some suntan. And they came to me and said, would you take an airplane down to Biak to bring some engineering supplies back? I said, yes, I will. So I did that. And when I came back from that, I decided I might as well go on and head for home. And I got the ride in a Goonie Bird, that's a C-47, up to Tacloban. On Leyte, they took me over to another airfield, assigned me a place to sleep in a tent. 5 minutes later, I came over the PA system, now hear this. He called me back. Get your stuff, you're going on that C-54 to San Francisco. I rode that C-54 but we stopped at Guam first. And I saw a B-29 there, and We asked the pilot, can we look at your airplane? He said, it's classified. He said, so it's a B-24 I've been flying in combat. Oh, come on, you can see anything you want to see. So we crawled all through a B-29 to see what it was like. And then we went up to end of Wetumpka and went to stop at Johnson Island on the way home. I was on Johnson Island. I found out that Roosevelt had died. And I said, here's where we get talked out of the peace talk. Anyway, we went on into Honolulu, and they kicked me off that airplane. I flew in an LB-30 the rest of the way to the West Coast. I said, well, an LB-30 is a B-24 made into a passenger. I got to the West Coast. I sent my wife a telegram. She was at her mother's up in Saskatchewan, and she got it by mail because the nearest town was Townsville that had a cable. So she got it and she came on down. I told her I was on the West Coast headed east. I'd be home. I'd be in Quincy Friday or Saturday. Well, I got here Friday. But I knew the train was running from St. Paul to St. Louis, a Zephyr. And I figured she'd be coming on that. So I went to the depot to buy a ticket to Quincy, and I told the guy, that's the way I want to go. He said, you can't go that way, you got to go direct. I said, okay, sell me a ticket. I got a ticket to go on the train I wanted to go on. And I got over to Burlington, Iowa, got off that train, waited for the Zipper to come through, figured she might be on it. I walked every coach in that train, she wasn't on it. She came in the next morning at 4 o'clock. Had 30 days at leave. Then I got sent to Miami Beach for reassignment. I got signed to the Ferry Command. But my wife and I had a good time down there. We were on the beach, we were throwing horseshoes, we were swimming. Hey, you know those sea nettles sting like hell if you run into one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
How did you stay in touch with your wife or your family and friends back home?
What?
How did you stay in touch with your wife and your family and friends back home?
When I was overseas,
Mm-hmm.
I just wrote letters.
Letters. How often did you send letters?
About every 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
She saved every one of them. The kids enjoyed reading them.
Oh, I bet they did. Where were you when World War II ended?
I was stationed in Memphis, Tennessee, but they had sent me out to Lubbock, Texas to go through instrument flight school.
Okay.
And my wife had never driven the car much, but she got a friend to help her get a driver's license, went on the ration board and got 2 tires to take the car to her, and gas, to take the car to her sister's up in Rochester, Minnesota. But she didn't go there. She came out to Lubbock, Texas. We lived in a motel out there for $3 a night. Had a kitchen in it. And when the war ended, that's where we were. And the gas rationing is off, so we got in the car and we drove back to Memphis, Tennessee. And they said, you can't go on the air base. You said you wanted out, you're getting out. So we stayed in a motel that night. The next day I went out to the airport and got on base long enough to turn in my parachute. And then we took off north, headed for Quincy.
How were you received when you returned home to Quincy?
I stopped to see an uncle of mine in St. Louis, and got received very well with him. We spent a night with him, and then we drove on up to Quincy. We stayed at my mother's for a while, and I had to go to, I had 12-day delay en route. I had to go to Fort Sheridan up Chicago to get a discharge. So I went up there, and we got there Friday afternoon. They said, come back Monday morning. So I took my wife over to her sister's in Rochester, Minnesota, and I came back and got my discharge on Monday. And then I visited a friend that lived in St. Charles, Illinois up there. Then I went over and picked up my wife and went up to Minneapolis to talk to airlines and see if I get a job flying. They said, you got to have a green card. I said, I went through Institute of Flight School. Said, no, that's not good enough. You got to have the green card. You better have to go take a test first. Well, I was down to about my last $300, so I came back to Quincy. I went to Ed Brown and told him I want to come back to the drugstore and work in the pharmacy and see if I get my pharmacy license. I got it in a year. I was an assistant pharmacist in a year. Then 5 years later, I went up and took another pharmacy license, pharmacy test, with a college graduate in Chicago. I passed that. So then I was a registered pharmacist, and I worked there until 1983. 1983, I went to Ed Brown. I said, I've been working for you a long time. He said, what do you want to do now? I said, I want to quit the 3rd of March. I wanted to retire. I was 67. Wanted to retire, and then my wife and I had a nice car. We got a new car, and we toured the whole country. We went to every state except New England, and we made 3 trips to Alaska. She had 2 sisters in Los Angeles area, and we'd visit them. I had a couple of guys on my air crew. One was in Phoenix, Arizona. Another one was up at Reno, Nevada. I'd visit them. I had a brother in Northern California. I'd visit him. My wife had a brother in the Okanagan Valley of Canada, and we'd go up there. Then we'd come back across Canada to where her folks were and visit there. For a long time, we went up there for 3 weeks every summer. I helped my father-in-law put up hay. I lost all my belly with the hay fork.
Did you have any trouble readjusting to civilian life after you'd been flying?
No.
Did you miss the flying?
I did just fine. I went right back into it, and I really was studying that pharmacy. Another fellow that had bought a mail order thing from Heinz School of Pharmacy in Chicago gave me what he had because he'd gotten his license. So I used that to get my first license. Then I bought another of them to get my next license.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other fellow veterans, or do you attend any other reunions now? Any other veteran reunions? You said you...
I was at the 13th Air Force reunion in Indianapolis last year.
Mm-hmm.
One of my daughters came down from Wisconsin and drove me over there. She and her husband like to go to them. And so does my daughter out in Omaha, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And the reunion this year is going to be September the 1st to the 4th in Omaha, Nebraska. My daughter from Wisconsin is going to come to drive me out.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
I'll go to that.
Mm-hmm. Do you belong to any service organizations? Are you a member of any...
Any what?
Veteran service organizations?
I belong to the American Legion.
Okay.
They told me 1 year if I'd paid 2 years dues, I'd be paid up for life. So I'm paid up for life. I'm paid up for life in the Masonic Order.
There you go. Other than traveling, what have you done since you've separated from service? What do you do for recreation?
Well, I used to fly some airplanes. Then I was flying one my daughter and her son and my daughter and son-in-law had up around Milwaukee. And I went out to I took it off one morning from Crites Field. It went out and shot a couple of touch-and-go landings, and then I kind of got lost up there. So I looked around, and I found where Milwaukee was, and I went back toward it and got back to the field and landed. I said, I'm not as comfortable up here as I used to be. I'm not going to do this anymore, and I quit flying. I used to do a lot of fishing. Had a boat and motor, and we lived on the Mississippi, and that was our playground in the summertime. I taught all of my girls to water ski.
Did you bring anything back from your time in service that you consider to be good luck?
Anything? Well, I brought one thing back I wasn't supposed to have.
Okay, what was it?
A picture of Australia. We called it the Battle of Sydney because I'd been down there. I spent 10 days down there.
Why weren't you supposed to have it?
What?
Why weren't
I don't
you?
know. They said it's a makeshift thing. I put it with my medals. It was them at home.
Mhm.
When I got back, I got my ruptured duck.
What's a ruptured duck?
It's the thing you got, a little button you got passed out showing you'd been in service.
During your time, did you have plenty of supplies, and did you always have everything you needed? Was everything you needed provided for you?
For the most part, it was.
What was missing?
I didn't like the food very well that they were serving us in Townsville, so I ate at the Red Cross.
What was the food like in Townsville?
Oh, it was terrible.
Powdered eggs?
Yeah.
What was it about the food?
Well, it always had a lot of wax in it. And let's see. I couldn't go swimming there at Townsville. I could go swimming there at Townsville if I wanted to. But I didn't do that very much.
Did you ever spend time at bases or places where they had entertainers come?
Yeah, we had entertainment on the island of Morotai. My bombardier come to me and said, "Oh, they got the girls tonight. I'm going over and watch the girls sing and dance." I said, "If I can't reach them, I don't even want to see them." Besides, I had to behave myself over there. I was married by then.
What did you do when you weren't home on leave? I mean, did you guys play cards other than the swimming? Anything else that you guys did for recreation?
You mean when I was still overseas?
Yes, overseas.
Well, I had one job I didn't like very well. I was an officer and I had to read the enlisted men's mail to take out anything they shouldn't say.
Oh.
That was kind of a bad job.
I can understand.
Hated
Was
to
there
cut
a lot
stuff
of-
out, but they weren't allowed to tell what island they were on.
So you actually had to cut pieces out of their mail.
Yeah.
How long did you have to do that?
Well, maybe about once a week for 2 or 3 hours. Before it get mailed out, it had to be censored.
So you censored the mail
That's right.
for the whole time you were there?
Yeah. I had one bad thing happen to me over there. I was on the island of Morotai, and I had taken a whole bunch of pictures. I had 6 rolls of 828 film. That's 48 pictures. I was afraid they'd confiscate them when I was on the way home. So I went to one of the guys on the photo crew, asked him if he would develop them for me. He said he would. He charged me for it. But he ruined every one of them. They were panchromatic film and he exposed them to red light. I never got a picture out of that. That's why I don't have any to show.
How did the military time affect your life after service?
Well, the only way it affected me much, I made it a point to go to the 13th Air Force reunions. I was the 307th Air Group that I flew with, but I didn't like something they did to one of the girls that helped get that group started. So I resigned from that one. I just stayed in the 13th Air Force Air Group. I got sick of the mail the other day about the reunion this year.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have things that you would consider life lessons from your time in service?
Like what?
Did you gain anything you would consider like life lessons from your time in service?
Not really.
Okay.
I just went where they told me and did what they told me to do.
Okay. Did you ever, you mentioned that you took the test to be a pharmacist, but you never used the GI Bill, never used the VA home loan program?
No.
Okay.
I just got that mail order outfit and studied it.
Mm-hmm. Does your time in service, has it impacted how you feel about military service or war in general?
I think there's a lot of wars we ought to get out of. Personal opinion.
Yeah. Do you have something you want to be sure if someone watches this interview in future generations that they understand or hear about your time?
Well, that'd be just fine. If you will, anybody wants to hear it, they can hear it.
Anything you want to tell them?
No. Just enjoy it. Be glad, be happy you didn't have to do it.
Is there anything you feel like I have not asked, or anything that we want to be sure we discuss about your time in service today that you want to add to the interview?
I think we've covered everything pretty well.
Okay. If you're ready, I'm going to turn off the camera.
Okay.